Hi, my name is Vance, and I'm here to share with you a concept that my wife and I came up with for a Predator franchise DLC, a license crossover for the game Dead by Daylight. If you've never heard of that game before, then this video is gonna seem a little bizarre. It's a 1 versus 4 asymmetrical horror game, pitting 4 human players as survivors against one also human player as a killer. Now, historically, Dead by Daylight has pulled in some iconic horror franchise license holders like Freddy Krueger from Nightmare on Elm Street, Michael Myers from the Halloween franchise, Sadako from the Ringu movie, and we feel in our jellies that the Predator is soon to come to Dead by Daylight. So we thought it would be a fun little passion project to come up with a concept for what that DLC might look like, both the killer and the survivor side. And I would like to dedicate this video to my wife on our very spooky anniversary. Here is to a lifetime enjoying the horror genre together. Feel free to skip around with the timestamps below, as I know I can be a little long-winded. I'm going to review the killer power, perks, and add-ons, a more detailed overview of the power and balance discussion, the survivor and their perks, and close out with our look at what are the potential cosmetics we would love to see in the Predator DLC. So what are the Predators? The Predators are part of an alien race called the Yautja, and the Yautja are governed by a strict code of honor. The gist of it is that they seek out worthy prey. They don't target the weak, the sick, the pregnant, the elderly. They target the biggest and baddest predators out there, and they hunt them down in a sort of maturation ritual. You know, the rite of passage for Yautja to get blooded and ascend in their society, their social structure. To me, this is really interesting for a movie villain. They're not straight evil, like Michael Myers, evil incarnate. They're not this one note villain. They have a code that they follow, and within their society, this code is moral to them. And you can even see them side with humans at times. In the comics, I know, while I haven't really read them, Yautja and humans will often fight alongside one another when they have a common threat like the xenomorphs. So they're not just evil, they're definitely villains, and they're definitely scary slasher killers, but they have some complexity to them, and I think that that's fun to play with from a design perspective. So when designing the abilities, I thought, let's have some really high risk, high reward, or high effort, high reward gameplay. And to benchmark, I wanted to achieve a sort of complexity in their kit that would reflect everything that we see in the movies. So I was looking at Vecna as an example and Freddy Krueger because they have pretty large kits in Dead by Daylight. For the gameplay loop, I was looking to blend something like Sadako and Michael Myers, who both have ways to achieve mini Moris, but they have to work over the course of the match to achieve that. So we've got complex, versatile kit with multiple elements, and you can achieve mini Moris. All right, so this may be a little ambitious, but let's see how it sounds to you guys. We've got to see that laser 3-dot sight, right? That's just got to be in there. So the rhythm that I'm imagining is you've got the predator as a ranged stalker, hunter and stalker. They can enter cloak to maneuver and position around the map. They don't have to go for melee range. They just have to go for angles, for line of sight and good positioning. Then they can use their lock-on ability, tagging survivors to get them marked. And when a survivor is marked, that's the first step toward mini Mori. Okay? When you tag a survivor, you mark them, they become marked prey. A little bit like how Ghostface works in Dead by Daylight. And that advances the Mori state. Right? Sadako has to build condemned stacks. Michael Myers has to just stare at them menacingly for a long time. Predator will tag them, mark them as prey, and then hunt them down. So here I've got it so you mark them, and then you hit them with the bolt gun to injure them while they are marked, and then you hit them while they're injured and marked, and they become prized prey. When they're prized prey, they can be mini-moried. Right, so that'd be 1, 2, 3 steps, and then you have to chase them down and get the mini Mori. A little bit like Michael Myers, but we've got range, right? You can use the cloak to reposition, and while you're cloaked, I imagine something like Dark Lord's teleport in bat form, uh, where instead of only teleporting to vaulting locations within 32 meters, maybe we can teleport to vaulting locations that are further than 32 meters away, but not right next to a generator. And in this way, despite being a 4.4 meter per second killer, you can still have some really strong map traversal, but it's not designed to get you in melee hit range of survivors. It's designed to help you reposition rapidly across the map. And to me, this would kind of replicate what we see in the movies, where the predators are just there, watching from the trees or the rooftops, and they leap from position to position. I think we can do something kind of like that here. We have the biohelmet represented. What this does by default is allow you to see survivors that you've tagged. Not in real time, you can't just follow them that easily, but you can see those tags ping every few seconds when you pull out biohelmet view. In addition, you get thermal vision charges when the survivors complete generators, and when you activate it for a period of time, say 20 seconds or so, you will be able to see survivors highlighted, thermal vision, maybe items that they've recently interacted with, and any blood trails from injured survivors. There's a transition period to get in and out of biohelmet and to activate thermal vision to make it a little more balanced. The survivors will get some counterplay. They'll get weapon lockers around the map that allow them to be worthy prey, to take up the challenge and accept your combat challenge. So they can get the Raphael Adolini flintlock or the blooded combi stick that we see Lex Woods earn in Alien vs. Predator, or the regular combi stick, which is a classic sort of spear that the Predators wield. These items can be used to stun the Predator for between 2 and 4 seconds. The flintlock would be ranged. The others would be melee. Single use, once per trial. Okay. And if you use it and stun the Predator with the weapon, you become prize prey, right? And you never stop being marked prey. So you put a mark on you to say, hey, I've opted in. I'm challenging the killer here, and I'm going to strike the killer with this weapon, but I'm going to make myself vulnerable and a lot easier to get with the mini Mori for the rest of the trial. So high risk, high reward for both the Predator, the killer player, and the survivor player. And I'm hoping that makes things pretty interesting. On to the perks. I want to encourage some high risk, high reward gameplay with this DLC. So, in accordance with the Yautja honor code, this is how the perks are themed. The first one is Equalize the odds. The Yautja like to go after strong prey. So, let's go after healthy survivors. Stuns and blinds from healthy survivors last half as long, and you vault and damage objects 25% faster for 12 seconds after you're stunned or blind. But, on the flip side, when an injured survivor stuns or blinds you, they get a little bit of haste for 2 seconds. So you're encouraged to go after those healthy survivors, and the injured survivors get a little bit of a leg up in exchange. This would work pretty well for the Predator because ideally you're going for those mini Moris. Number 2, Hex hunting worthy game. This one's even more of a trade-off, so we're actually going to buff the survivors with our Hex in exchange for a really nasty downside that they have to face. Survivors are exposed after any fast action, and that's just a permanent status given by the Hex. On the other hand, injured survivors and dying survivors will heal and recover a little bit faster. So the survivors have a strategic choice to make when they notice that they are affected by this Hex. Do they keep the Hex around for the slightly faster healing and take on that big risk that they will be one-shotted after any fast action? The third one, prized prey. I figure we've got to have an obsession-themed mechanic somewhere for the Predator, right? Michael Myers has his obsession perks. Let's get an obsession perk for the Predator. So how about the inverse of Quick Gambit? Survivors have a perk called Quick Gambit where the one being chased brings this perk along, and while they're in chase, their friends get increased speed to repairing generators. So as long as they can occupy the killer, waste their time in chase, their friends get that speed bonus. Let's do the opposite of that. Let's make something like that for the killer so that you're not punished as much when you are dedicating to a chase, when you're committing to chasing the obsession. Your obsession gets an increased speed to repairs and healing that goes up when they're injured. On the other hand, when you are chasing them or carrying them, all other survivors get a significant speed penalty to repairs and healing, and it persists whenever they're hooked or when they escape for a brief period of time, so that you're encouraged to close the chases. Now, if you are bringing some perks that complement this, like Friends Till the End, that let you choose who the obsession is going to be and switch on the fly, you could really have some fun with this, I think. And you would feel a little less pressure when you're chasing that obsession because you know that the rest of their team has this hefty debuff to their repair speeds. As for the add-ons, when my wife and I were watching the original Predator, I took note of some key objects that I think would be good images to draw for the add-ons. So we've got the Scar Stump, there was a leather hat, helicopter headsets, max shaving razors, things like that. But we care about the effects for this concept. So this is just a draft, but of course we'd have some common add-ons that simply affect the stats. Things like the cooldown on your perch, that teleportation relocation ability that I've given when you are cloaked, or you can teleport to vaults. A cooldown reduction after missing attacks with your lock on, so that you're not punished quite so hard for missing those ranged attacks. And increasing your cloak transition speed if you want to be a little bit more in melee range, it would help you do that. Thermal vision duration for tracking, and prize prey duration to try to clinch the mini Mori once you achieve prize prey on a survivor. The more interesting add-ons that we've got that aren't just flat upgrades, one would change your gameplay a little bit so that you move faster baseline and cloaked, but now you have to hit 3 times rather than twice to activate prize prey. Something along those lines, making it a little harder to get the mini Mori in exchange for higher mobility in case you don't want to play the reduced mobility base kit. Just giving you that option to opt out of that aspect of the design. Starting the match with thermal vision charges, in addition to the ones that you get when survivors complete generators, and increasing its duration. Blinding survivors, that's aura, so they can't see auras anymore, for 12 seconds once they're marked prey. It's going to make it a little bit harder for those survivors relying on windows of opportunity to escape. Exhausting survivors for a brief period when they become prized prey, so that they cannot sprint away the moment they're prized prey, and if they use sprint, they're going to stay exhausted. Punishing survivors who blind or stun you with marked prey. I think it's fair to say that if a survivor blinds or stuns the killer, they are opting into the challenge to some degree. And finally, the iridescence add-ons. I envision starting the match with a thermal vision charge, and then having thermal vision active for the rest of the trial when an exit gate has been opened. The last one is survivors who strike the hunter with a weapon aren't just prize prey for 60 seconds, they are prize prey for the rest of the trial. Now for a more detailed discussion on the Predator or the Hunter's abilities, just to get into the weeds a little bit. So this lock-on ability, the idea is we're not going to run into that problem that the Ghoul currently has, where you can click the moment you see the teeth icon to leap and grab the survivors and inflict injured and deep wound and slow them down. We're going to have you focus your reticle on the survivor for a brief period to lock on. Then you can release and fire. And you have a choice. You can fire a barbed tag if you're targeting a survivor that's not already marked prey. That's going to turn them into marked prey. This is if you're going for the mini Mori, right? It's not going to injure them. Instead, it's going to put a tag on them that you can see pulse every few seconds if you're looking in biohelmet view to track them. It takes a while. It should take a good amount of time, not just 6 seconds like Freddy's fire axe, but it should take a good while to remove these barbed tags. And be faster if your friend removes them, because that's wasting both of your time, keeping you off the gens. Or if you don't want to tag them, you can go straight for the bolt gun, and just like Huntress or Deathslinger, that's going to lead to injury. It's going to remove a health state. You can down with the bolt gun. Because I've made the Predator a 4.4 meter per second killer, not a 4.6, right? They're not going to be reliant on melee hits. So you can down with this power. But if you're going for the mini Mori, then when you hit a survivor for the second time with the bolt gun, if they're tagged, if they are marked prey, then instead of going into the dying state, they become prized prey and they take deep wound. Then you want to go and chase them down for the mini Mori. So you've got options. You can choose to play Predator for a hook sacrifice style, where you just use the bolt gun to down survivors and hook them. But if you want to, you can go for the mini Mori, where you would use a bolt gun hit and tag them, and bolt gun again, whatever order, and you will be turning marked prey into prize prey to close in for the kill. The cloak is going to have some telegraphing for the survivors to know when you're cloaking and uncloaking. I don't want this to simply be an upgrade to the Wraith. The Wraith has his place. Right? We're not trying to compete with that. The Wraith is fast when he's cloaked. Here we move a little slower when we're cloaked, because we're not a melee killer. We're going for ranged hits. So this cloaking is really about repositioning, not chasing down. And in accordance with that, we're a slower killer, we cloak to reposition, we get a teleport. Now in canon, what's going to happen is you're not actually teleporting, you're kind of leaping off screen and then leaping back onto the screen to land on a vault location. Right? But mechanically, this is essentially a teleport. Right? And it lets you reposition around the map to close in on survivors, but not place you within melee range. The bio helmet, there'll be a little transition going in and out of the helmet, and you don't get perfect view, consistent view of the aura of those tags. You get a ping, kind of like a radar pulse, right? And you move slower when you're in bio helmet view. You don't chase them while you have aura on the tag, okay? Thermal vision is extra tracking capability that you get as the survivors complete generators. So if you are getting gen rushed on Predator and you're feeling that pressure mount, this kind of helps make up for that. You get some added tracking capability where you can easily see blood trails and items that survivors have recently interacted with, and survivors themselves, even distant ones, will be highlighted bright, red, yellow, green in thermal vision while you're in that view. The prize prey, specifically, it works like Michael Myers when he has the instant, straight to Mori ability in effect. So once you get in range of someone who's prize prey, then you just click and you execute the mini Mori. It's not like Sadako's, where you have to down them first and then use her stare mini Mori. You just click when you're in melee range, and boom, Predator's going to do his thing with the wrist blades, and they're out. So it's pretty quick. The regular Mori is just going to look really cool. I think that scene from Prey, where the Predator goes after Grizzly Bear, raises the thing over his head and roars. Yeah, that's the kind of vibe we're going for with the Mori animation. The counterplay, with the survivors able to use weapon lockers, points not to make this oppressive. I don't want it to be quite as present throughout the game as the flame turrets are against the xenomorph. Those can be used repeatedly. You keep getting that wailing scream from the xenomorph every time you run into the flames, and it's kind of a downer for the killer. In this case, survivors that opt into using the weapons, that comes with its own cost, because they are making themselves vulnerable, right? When they're wielding a weapon, they are marked prey. You don't even have to bother tagging them. They're already marked prey. So if you do bolt gun, hit once, now they're injured marked prey, bolt gun again, now they're prize prey, and you can go in for the mini Mori. So they opt into a higher challenge when they pick up these weapons. And if they use it against you and actually hit you, they can only do that once, first of all, so you can be stunned this way a maximum of 4 times in a trial. Maximum. They can use it once. It makes them prized prey. So if you can chase them down after they've used it against you, then you get the mini Mori. All right? They are opting in to challenge. And I think that this would be really fun or high skill players going against each other who are looking for this kind of challenge. Took some notes about some of the telegraphing, right? Because you've got a pretty easy Mori condition, right? You don't have to build up 7 stacks of condemned. You don't have to stare at someone for like 3 minutes straight. You do tag, bolt gun, close in for the melee hit, and they are Mori'd. So the trade-offs need to be substantial. You have lower base movement speed because you're not a melee killer, you're not a chase killer, and this is not dash slop. Survivors get the telegraph before that lock-on completes. 3-dot laser sight takes a little bit of time, maybe like 0.7 seconds. For comparison, Hawkeye has a focus mechanic that is similar in the game Marvel Rivals. If he focuses his reticle on the enemy for 0.7 seconds, he has a focused shot and it does more damage. And that allows him to potentially one-shot with the headshot. So taking that cue from that game, I said, okay, 0.7 seconds, that's a good starting point. Playtesting would help refine the actual timing of this. They can see the 3-dot laser locking on. You can use your 3-dot laser and lock onto breakable objects. Didn't note that earlier, but yeah, you can damage generators, breakable walls, and pallets with this ability. So now survivors can actually take protection hits for generators. Survivors can remove the tags, and something I thought would be kind of fun is if they can hold the tag and say, you know what, I'm going to stay marked prey. Bring it on, Predator. But if I get downed and you carry me, my wriggle checks are going to be more effective. And I'm going to bleed the Predator a little bit. The Predator will leave a glowing green blood trail if they're carrying a survivor who's still holding onto that barbed tag, decided to stay marked prey. Okay? Counters and counters against each other. Hope that everyone gets to have a more engaging and exciting match. Now let's talk about the survivor side of the Predator DLC concept. Our survivor is going to be the main protagonist from the original 1987 movie, Alan Dutch Schaefer, the role played by Arnold Schwarzenegger. Now this guy is really cool, he's badass, he's a commando, goes into the jungle to investigate a downed helicopter and some missing or lost unaccounted for CIA agents, and finds more than he bargained for, he and the rest of the team. Alright, he gets hunted down, turns the hunt against the hunter, challenges the predator, and it's a really cool movie. His perks are going to be thematically similar to the Predator perks. High risk, high reward. Opting into a challenge for that sweet reward. So the first perk for Dutch is Issue Challenge. Now, I did come up with this concept with my wife before the Walking Dead PTB was announced. So there's a little similarity here to Come and Get Me from Rick, but that's a coincidence, I swear. This was already drafted. The idea for Issue Challenge came from my wife. I was asking her what would tell her she was doing well in a chase, and she said if she got the killer to whiff. Now, she likes showing me clips of her getting the killers to whiff, and I find it hilarious when it happens 4 or 5 times in a row before they give up or they finally catch her. So getting them to whiff is the win condition. Asked her what would be a good reward if you get the killer to whiff. I was expecting something traditional like getting haste, speed boost, or endurance. And she said dropping a smoke grenade. She really liked the fog vials that they introduced in the 2v8 and wanted to see more of that in the game. So the way this perk works is if you're near the killer, you can scream to challenge them. If they then enter the chase within 15 seconds, perk activates. You get them to miss or near miss at any point after that, you drop a smoke grenade. On the other hand, as soon as you take a health state, if you haven't gotten them to miss, then you instead misfire the smoke grenade and you take a deep wound. Either way, the challenge ends. You can do this twice in a match, once before and once after the exit gates are powered, and you can't stack this with fog vials. The second perk is Worthy Game. So this one, I was thinking about the movie when I designed this perk. We've got Dutch at the end of the movie. He does some pretty cool things rigging traps in the jungle. Log traps from ropes and swinging vines, that kind of thing. So why not rig a trap as a survivor? I don't want this to be overkill. I don't want this to be a really problematic perk. So I tried to constrain it. Here's the idea. You repair generators for at least 40% progress to be able to use the perk. Then you can rig a pallet that you're standing next to for a minute. The killer's aura is going to be revealed to you when they enter 4-meter range of the pallet. You're going to be on standby nearby, ready to drop the pallet on them. Ranged pallet triggering, right? That could be quite a problem. But here's the thing. You have to stay within 32 meters of that pallet. It doesn't last forever. And if you move beyond 32 meters, right, or that timer runs out, the 60 seconds, that pallet's just going to drop. And you're going to make a loud noise notification. You're going to draw the killer to your location. You can only do this once a trial. Okay? So high risk, high reward. If you pull it off, it's really satisfying. You can save your friend who's being chased, maybe prevent them from getting their death hook. But if you mess up, you're getting that loud noise notification. Actually, even if you succeed, you're still getting the loud noise notification. Right? So when you enter a lobby as a duo and you set up pallets for each other and try to do this, you're still telling the killer who set it off and where they are. The third perk, naturally camouflaged. This is, of course, a reference to Dutch covering himself up in mud and realizing, predator can't see me, must have thermal vision, and the mud is protecting me against that. Naturally camouflaged. So this one I think would be a nice perk option to enter the mix. We don't have a whole lot of ways to deal with aura, and it can feel a bit oppressive when killers have a lot of aura on you. There's a couple ways that you can try to combat it. One with Jeff's distortion perk. That one you earn tokens by being in chase. And then Mori has one soul obsession, where as her teammates die, she is harder to reveal with aura, which is not the best incentive. In this one, it's just going to be a passive effect, pretty minor, 25% less effective over the course of the match. So this one will be up there with resilience or lightweight or botany knowledge, where it's just giving you a nice passive bonus throughout the match, but nothing that's going to make the game rigged in your favor. All right, less range, less duration on auras that the killer gets to see you.
Last but not least, let's close out with a look at the potential cosmetics for this DLC. The default appearance for the Hunter or the Predator is going to come from Concrete Jungle, or the first movie, The Predator, 1987. But we've got some awesome opportunities for alternate skins, showing off different looks that Predators have had over the years in this franchise. I would be really excited to see the recent movie Prey, with its feral predator, also known as Mupitzel, enter the mix. This one would be a top pick for me. The Elder Predator is another iconic look from early in the franchise, and I do think that we should have an appearance that lets us see the unmasked, helmetless Predator. Celtic actually faces off against the Grid Xenomorph, who we can currently play as in the Alien DLC. So naturally, I think he should be in the mix. Berserker has a pretty distinctive look with the monstrous jawbone and more reptilian features, and also has a really good finale with the character Royce. Maybe worth a spot. If we look beyond the movies and TV at the comics, there's plenty of material to draw from. One that I would love to see personally is the mutated Yautja, which is a regular predator who took this accelerant thinking it would heal him from a battle wound, and he ends up transforming into something monstrous and having to be hunted down by his own kind. This guy could get a unique Mori and be visceral rarity, because he doesn't have the wrist blades. The recent TV limited series Killer of Killers shows us a new and I think instantly iconic look with the Grendel King. Now, I am personally a sucker for a good cloak. Love playing Alucard, and I would probably want to play this one as well. What do you think? We've got plenty of options to choose from comics, TV, and movies. Lots of other distinct looks that could enter the mix. Only so many slots, I'm guessing. And I would assume that behavior and the license holders are going to be more likely to draw from the movies, maybe TV, but fingers crossed that we would also see some from the comics. On the Survivor side, we've got Dutch. Dutch's skins would basically reflect how he gets increasingly ragged and muddy over the course of the movie, as he makes his way through the jungle and his men are picked off one by one by the Predator, culminating in the finale where he is literally covered in mud. Lex Woods earned a blooding from the Predators out of respect when she helped them take down aliens, xenomorphs together. So I definitely think that she has earned her spot with a legendary skin for the Survivor. Similarly, Naru was a total badass, and we don't really have any indigenous representation in Dead by Daylight, so I think this would be a wonderful way to add some, and her look would be very unique. I don't know of any other survivors with outfits like this. If we get Naru, I really hope that we also see Tabe, her brother. Of course, this would enable some fun duos, and Tabe was just as brave. They were really, really strong pair of fighters together. And I liked their relationship and their dynamic over the course of that movie. The Killer of Killers limited series also shows us potential survivors. There's a few. John Torres is just one of them. Whichever one we get, I do hope that we see this collar that the predators place on the other predators that they transport to their game planet. The people they identify as killers, as worthy prey. But which one do you think would enter? Maybe Ursa, the badass Viking character who fights with a broken shield. Mac, of course, another good option from the original movie. So you tell me, what would you like to see? If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching and listening in. I hope you got something out of the video. Please don't hesitate to share your own thoughts below. Even if it's disagreement, I'd love to hear some back and forth around the design decisions, the power, the perks, the add-ons, the cosmetics you'd like to see, any of it. Thank you and have a wonderful rest of your day.